The night was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that seemed to press against the ears. The creaks of the old house inched along the walls like unseen fingers, and the faint scent of mildew hung heavy in the air. 8-year-old Emily lay awake in her bed, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide as they darted toward the gap beneath the bed. For weeks, she'd felt it, the presence. A shadow that moved when it shouldn't, a sound like breathing that came from nowhere. Her parents dismissed her fears, brushing them off as nightmares. "It's just your imagination," they said, but Emily knew better. Something was under her bed, something waiting. The clock struck midnight, the chime echoing through the stillness. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as the shadows in her room seemed to thicken. Then she heard it, a low, guttural whisper that made her blood run cold. "Emily." Her breath hitched, her grip on the stuffed rabbit tightening. She pulled the blanket over her head, her body trembling. But the whisper came again, louder this time, a rasping voice that dripped with malice. "Emily, I'm hungry." The blanket offered no protection from the sound. It was inside her head, crawling through her mind like a swarm of insects, summoning what little courage she had. Emily peeked out from beneath the covers. The moonlight streaming through the window barely illuminated the room, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe on the walls. She leaned over the edge of the bed, her small hand clutching the edge of the mattress. Slowly, she lowered her gaze to the floor. Two eyes stared back at her from the darkness beneath the bed, black as the void, glinting like shards of broken glass. A grotesque grin stretched across her face, too large for the space it occupied, rows of jagged teeth gleaming in the faint light. The thing under the bed didn't move, but its presence filled the room with a suffocating dread. Emily jerked back, her scream catching in her throat. She scrambled to the far corner of the bed, her knees pressing against her chest. The whisper turned into a growl, a sound that vibrated through the room and rattled the bed frame. Long, skeletal hands with claws like daggers emerged from the darkness, curling around the bed's edges. The demon pulled itself up, its gaunt body contorting unnaturally, bones cracking as it rose. Emily's wide eyes locked on its face, a horrific blend of human and beast. Its skin was stretched taut over its skull, veins pulsing beneath its surface, and its mouth stretched impossibly wide, drooling a viscous black fluid that dripped onto the sheets. The creature lunged. Emily screamed as the claws slashed through the air, narrowly missing her face. She scrambled off the bed, her feet slipping on the cold floor as she bolted for the door. The demon moved faster than it should have been able to, its elongated limbs skittering like a spider's. Emily made it to the hallway, the wooden boards creaking beneath her feet. Behind her, the demon's guttural laughter echoed, a chilling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. She ran toward her parents' room, tears streaming down her face. She pounded on the door with trembling fists, screaming for help. But when the door swung open, it wasn't her parents she found. Their bodies were slumped on the bed, blood pooling beneath them. Deep gashes marred their chests, their lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. Emily froze, her scream lodged in her throat as the realization sank in. Too late. The demon purred from behind her. Emily turned, her back pressed against the door frame. The demon loomed over her, its grin stretching wider, impossibly wide, as it reached out a clawed hand. "No," she cried, her voice cracking. She threw the stuffed rabbit at it in a desperate attempt to fend it off. The demon caught the toy mid-air, its claws shredding the fabric and sending tufts of stuffing fluttering to the floor. With a sickening crack, the demon's neck twisted, its head tilting unnaturally as it stared her down. "Time to join them," it whispered. Emily's world exploded into pain as the claws raked across her chest. She collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around her as her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was the demon crouching over her, its gaping maw descending toward her face. When the neighbors reported the screams, the next morning, the authorities arrived to a scene of carnage. The house was silent, its air heavy with the stench of death. In Emily's room, They found the bed splintered and claw marks gouged deep into the floorboards. Beneath the bed, the stuffed rabbit lay in tatters, soaked in crimson. But of Emily, there was no sign, only the faint scent of sulphur and the echo of a malevolent laugh that lingered in the air. The house was abandoned, left to rot. Stories of the demon under the bed spread through the town, a cautionary tale for children who dared to look too closely into the shadows. But for those who listened closely at night, sometimes they swore they heard it, a faint, rasping whisper calling a name, Emily.